Welcome back, Men of Christian Assembly. We're so glad that you've tuned in to watch us one more time. Um, at the last men's gathering, Mark talked to us about 4 areas in a man's life that he should pre-decide. And so, what we're doing with these videos is kind of going into each one of these areas a little deeper. And I've asked some of my friends to join me in these conversations to talk about each one of these areas. And each one of these guys has a specific expertise, or they're just really doing it really well in this particular area. Last week we talked about time management with Ralph, and so today I've invited my friend George to join me, where we get to talk about pre-deciding in terms of financial matters. Now, if you don't know George, he's been a part of our church for many years and has recently come under our staff now as our stewardship pastor. So we're really excited to have him on board because he's not only a resource to us staff, but he's a resource to you guys on the community as well. And so, George, welcome. Thanks for spending some time with me. Mark talked to us about pre-deciding in regards to our finances. Give us some practical tips that men can easily do in their lives to start making some of those early decisions.
Well, as you know, Marvin, generally in life, you don't want to base your decisions on emotions. And that goes into finance, into just major decisions. One of the things that I think is significantly important at various stages in your life is to stay away from debt. The amount of debt that you have, whether it's small or large, can have such an impact in then future decisions that you make that can handicap your choices going forward. And I've seen that in my private practice years ago, and I see that now in meeting with couples and individuals. They're just buried in debt. So a question that I get often is, these are the things I want to do going forward. I want to make these decisions. And then one of the questions I'll ask, tell me about your debt. And inevitably, they always come back with, well, I have this amount of debt. And that really handicaps the things that they can do, and it limits your choices. So I would think that would be one of the first things to do is decisions you make now, especially if you're young, is don't get into debt.
So how do we pre-decide? We decide, okay, I won't get in debt, but what are some practical things we can put in place to help us not get into a place of debt?
Okay, well, one of the things is, and it's kind of a sound financial principle, is you always have to live within your means. And one of the fallacies that people think is they finish the answer, if I only had enough money, then I could blank. And that's a false narrative. Having more money generally will not change your choices because of behavior patterns that you have set in your life. So you'll just generally increase your spending habits or the choices you make with additional income.
Mm-hmm.
But if your habits haven't changed, then you'll still be having those bad habits just for greater amounts, larger numbers. So the key is, to me, always living within your means. So if you live within your means, that means that debt is not part of my budget. That's not part of my means. Because if I can't pay things off based on my monthly income, the amount of money that comes in,
yeah.
If I'm having to add debt to cover that, that just means that I'm not being able to make the payment and I'm having to extend credit in order to make that payment. All debt is basically saying, I don't have the money to pay it today, so I'll pay it in the future.
Right.
And that's a bad habit to get into.
So inevitably somebody's going to watch this and find themselves in some debt. So they might be thinking, well, great, I wish I would have heard this 10 years ago, 15 years ago. But they're at where they're at now. What are some things that they can be doing to help themselves? What are some pre-decisions they can take even now if they find themselves with some debt?
If you're in debt, then the first thing to do is to, if you don't have a budget, is clearly have a budget so you can see where your money is going. And for those in the church that haven't taken Financial Peace, I would encourage them to do that. That's a course that we offer 2 times a year. I'm available for individual counseling if they'd like to meet, and we can discuss their situation. But more general, if you have debt and you're in that position, then what you want to do is try to pay off that debt as quickly as possible, even at the point of eliminating saving for other things. So there's kind of steps that we recommend. You want to have at least $1,000 or so set aside for emergencies, and they teach that in Financial Peace University. You want to have your debt paid off. That's probably the next thing you want to do. And then third is you want to have a reserve for living expenses in case something happens. But the key is to be able to pay off the debt. You have to know how much money you're living with, and that's called the budget. So you have to make decisions how I'm spending my money, and if possible, allocate a significant amount to debt prior to even thinking about saving money. And I know it sounds contrary to a lot of things that we've been raised with. You want to save money, and that's a good thing, but if you've incurred debt, then it makes it difficult to save money, because chances are that debt that you're paying, the interest rate is significantly higher than what you're earning by saving.
Yeah, and one of the, I mean, we're in this Anxious for Nothing series, even on a church-wide level, and one of the things that creates so much anxiety for so many of us guys, especially, I think, is not feeling secure in the area of our finances. Mark talked a little bit about moving towards a heart of generosity, and he said something similar to what you just said about, sometimes we create this fallacy where we think, I'm going to be generous when I get that promotion or when something happens. And you're saying you need to decide to be generous today, right?
Well, yeah, if you always think that the right time is going to come at some point, you'll be waiting a long time, because that right time never happens. It's on God's timing, but we have to be good stewards of what He's given us. So we want to have a generous heart, but I would challenge you, how can you be generous if you're not being responsible with your finances? It's hard for me to then be generous for God's kingdom if I'm in debt, or if I haven't secured or being responsible with my retirement. It's hard to then be in that position if you haven't taken care of your own responsibilities. So to me, it's steps you want to take so ultimately you can be generous. And that's to me that falls under the picture of being a good steward. But first, in order to be able to do those things, you have to have your house in order. And one of those things is to really not be in debt.
Great. Well, like George said, the church offers Financial Peace University twice a year. If you've never invested the time to do that, they can do that. When's the next time they can jump into that?
We just started now. We'll probably launch it again in the spring, so
Okay.
probably in March sometime.
So spring 2019, you can jump into Financial Peace, but don't wait until then to activate or to do something about your financial health. George, you're available.
I'm available to meet. Just email me and we'll schedule a time. Be
Great.
happy to meet.
And how high on the list of priority in terms of our finances is my ability to buy Dodgers tickets?
Well, if you would say Boston Celtics tickets, then that goes before anything else. But Dodgers, being that they're probably not going to go anywhere again.
But they're in the playoffs.
Again,
6
they're
consecutive divisional title winners
with no ring. So again, they would be low priority. That's just.
Then you're a Pirates fan, right? Is that what we're hearing?
That's not the appropriate question you asked. Where's the Dodgers on the scale of priority? It's very low.
Hey guys, thanks for watching today. And again, if you want to meet with George, you can find his email on our website and reach out to him. He'd be happy to buy you lunch or something. See you then.
Take care.
That Mark asked us to pre-decide, and I finally put my hand. Hey, welcome back, men of.
I can't help it. Everything's fine.
Hey, men of Christian.
It's not gonna work. I'm just telling you.
3, 2. Hey, welcome back, men of Christian Assembly. I'm here with George. I don't know.
I gotta get it out.